before I click that button, I'll put a screenshot up of what it looks like. I feel like my heart always races a little bit because I never know what insane thing awaits me there. And so I was like, wait a second, that was directed at me. I didn't think of myself in racial terms at all. We weren't raised with that. I wasn't sat down and told like, you're white or you're not white or you whatever. Actually, my identity was rooted in something else. My dad always told us, you're Italian, be proud of it. We are trained to learn how to reduce to the simplest idea, find the lowest common denominator, use the greatest common factor to reduce a fraction. And we're talking about simplifying it. Break it down for me. You know, what's the Cliff Notes, TLDR? It was too long, I didn't read it. Give me the gist. But there is no way to reduce others and get the gist of who they are this way. Hi, I'm Danielle Romero, and thank you so much for being with me here today on my channel where we talk about American identity and family stories. YouTube has this process, you've probably been made aware of it at some point, where they will flag and hide comments. And on my end, I'm allowed to put in certain words to automatically moderate, which I'm pretty sure I don't have any, but there are certain comments that YouTube will just decide are either needing to get approved, or there's another layer that's like even worse where they call them hidden comments. And I actually have to go into YouTube, go to the held comments, which there are a lot, and then go to the show hidden comments, and they give like a warning to me before I click on it. And I'm going to tell you the truth. Before I click that button, I'll put a screenshot up of what it looks like. I feel like my heart always races a little bit because I never know what insane thing awaits me there. And so I don't check it a lot, but it had been a couple weeks. And so I thought I better just check it and start cleaning stuff out. And there was a comment on a video of mine that just said 3 things. It just said, blacks are stupid. And it took me a second because I get a lot of crazy comments just about different ways people feel about different groups and things like that. But this video in particular was me. And I actually was talking about blood quantum for Native Americans. Like, it had nothing to do with African American history in that way. And so there were like a couple of things as I was reading it. I was like, that's a weird thing, in that video. And I was like, wait a second, that was directed at me. So what caught me off guard wasn't the comment itself, because like I said, I get a lot of weird comments. Here's why it hit me in such a strange way. So for basically my entire life, and I'm almost 40, I didn't think of myself in racial terms at all. We weren't raised with that. I wasn't sat down and told like, you're white or you're not white or you whatever. Actually, my identity was rooted in something else. My dad always told us, you're Italian, be proud of it. Okay. So I'm here with my dad. My dad's here from New York, and this is the first time that we have ever done this to talk about your family.
Yeah, this is true.
Okay.
Well, my name is Dominic.
Yeah, and
Yes.
you're from?
I'm from upstate New York.
Upstate New York. So we have talked about the Italian American experience on the channel. I have been doing it. I've been delving into it. Can you tell me, as a little boy, what you were raised as? Like, what were you told your heritage was? What were you told?
Right.
Or did you not have those conversations? Or like, what was that like?
Those conversations were pretty prevalent in our family because they were immigrants, and that immigrant experience was pretty fresh. I don't have an issue, like if you want to identify as white, black, brown, whatever, but I wasn't raised with a color. I was raised with being Italian. And my dad always told me, be proud of this, be proud of your heritage. And I was. And so, obviously I didn't know about my mom's side of the family yet. And that's only been in the past couple of years. But I did grow up with a strong sense of who I was or who I thought I was, but not in the way that comment assumed. To me, the identity was not based on a color, but it was based on, our immigration story. What kind of food do we eat? Things like that. So that comment, blacks are stupid, referring to me, it didn't hurt my feelings or like shatter my sense of self or anything, but it made me realize that no matter how I have seen myself, no matter how you see yourself, there's a broader lens being applied to us. And it was a reminder that I want to say America, I would say the whole world, maybe this is just the way we interact with each other now, that we have this long habit of deciding what people are, regardless of how they see themselves. And that hit me. This is not just about me, but it's how identity works here in the US. Maybe how it works
in your home country, if you're not from the US, how the world sees you is not always how you see yourself. And what's interesting is that this is not a new phenomenon. We might say, wow, it's gotten really bad. I think in some ways it has. I think in a lot of ways it's a lot better. But in a lot of ways, there's a continuity. America has been doing this for centuries, deciding who belongs where, who gets to be seen as fully human, who gets to be fully capable, who's fully intelligent. We talk a lot about major events on this channel that I have kind of been piecing together where my family was during them. We're talking about Jim Crow, segregation, big cases like Brown versus the Board of Education that desegregated schools. But there are so many smaller, more insidious ways that society was built to control identity and limit people based on their perception of your race. For example, during Jim Crow, there were rules that dictated how Black people had to behave in public spaces. I'm saying Black because, one, I really don't subscribe to the Crayola color identity for myself. But again, back in the day, Black was one drop of Black blood. I've talked about this. My family, my great-grandmother died 2 years before Louisiana repealed the one drop rule. She never made it into the brave new world where the one drop rule was erased. And the one drop rule, if you know, hang with me. If you don't, one drop of Black blood taints you. One Black ancestor. I did a whole video on that. Walter Plecker and Naomi Drake in New Orleans did this also, making sure that birth certificates and things were changed to reflect that ancestry. So, when people are looking at me and now not knowing my story, not knowing my, family heritage, whatever, and just going based on maybe how I look and assuming I'm Black, like I'm not like I feel bad about it, but it really makes me think about what some of my family I know must have endured and worse and worse. So, for example, one law required Black men to step off the sidewalk if a white person approached. Something as simple as walking became a way to remind people of their place. Over the last 2 years, I've been telling the stories that often get ignored. But lately, I've been facing an uphill battle behind the scenes of each video. My videos are getting flagged by YouTube when all I'm doing is sharing real history. If these stories have ever resonated with you or given you a new perspective, grab some Be a Good Ancestor merch and help me keep this channel going. Check out nytonashville.com. Whoever counts as Black, I mean, if you know the lawsuit Plessy versus Ferguson, we were talking about a man who was like 1/16th African American, okay? Again, that one drop rule. So even the census had a hand in this. In 1790, this was the first census. It just had 3 categories. It had free white males, free white females, and all other persons. So imagine that for a second, people being reduced to just the other. Everyone else just gets thrown into this group. And I like to think that those times are behind us. I know that in many ways they are. They are. But when I saw that comment, it just made me realize how much of that thinking can still linger under the surface, especially for keyboard warriors. And it's subtle, but it's there. These labels that were created generations ago are still hanging around, still shaping how people see each other, how we talk to each other. That's why I just die inside when people are like, it's ancient history. Why are we talking about it? I'm like, what school did you go to? Didn't you take history class? Like, this is not ancient history, and just amazes me how fast that rebuttal is always like forget about it. It's old. I'm like, do you know how old mathematics is? Like, we're still doing math, right? Like, age has nothing to do with relevancy. And so what the comment really got me thinking about was how complex identity actually is. And I love diving into it. I think it's beautiful. It's amazing. And it's not just something you can sum up in a single word or a single sentence. None of us are just one thing. Even if you are all one thing, it's also often made up of many parts. I was researching a bit about Ireland because I have a lot of Irish ancestry, and just trying to understand Irish history and the different groups and tribes that were there and how they saw each other, and they didn't see each other as a monolithic group for a long time. Many still don't. So I grew up identifying with my Italian roots, but over time I've learned so much more about my family story. I've shared it publicly with you. Everything has been us together doing this. There was a whole layer I didn't know about. People in my family tree who lived a very different version of America. And I didn't grow up with those stories, but they're still a part of who I am. And what I've learned is that we live in a world that loves to reduce people. Right now, I homeschool my kids, and my fifth grader we're doing a lot of fractions right now. We're multiplying fractions, we're dividing fractions, we're reducing. I was thinking about that. We are trained to learn how to reduce to the simplest idea, find the lowest common denominator, use the greatest common factor to reduce a fraction. And we're talking about simplifying it. Break it down for me. What's the Cliff Notes, TLDR? It was too long, I didn't read it. Give me the gist. But there is no way to reduce others and get the gist of who they are this way. We all carry layers of history, of culture, of experience. When we try to simplify that, we miss the richness of who people really are. And this is where the danger comes in. When we start to believe in these labels, when we let the world define us based on this narrow view, we lose something. We lose something important. We lose the complexity. We lose the full story. And that's why comments like Black people are stupid. That's what those are trying to do. They're trying to strip away the fullness of a person's identity and reduce them to a stereotype. So here's where the opportunity lies, though, because there's always an opportunity. We have a chance to push back against these old ideas by telling the full story, our full story, your family's full story. It doesn't matter what your background is. Maybe you're 100% German. Maybe you're Italian. Maybe you're half and half, or you're like me and a lot of little slices from a lot of different little places. We live in a time when technology gives us access to share more and to dig deeper and bring these hidden histories to light. I think the more we talk about our families and our backgrounds, and the more we embrace the complexity of who we are, the less room there is for comments like Blacks are stupid to hold any power. Because when we know the full picture, when we understand the layers of identity, history, and culture, it becomes harder to reduce anyone to a single label. It just can't be done. And that's where the real change happens. It's in these conversations, sharing the stories, the acknowledgement that we're all more than the labels we've been given. So a comment like Blacks are stupid. Okay. I know a lot of comments like this. I ignore it. I just, don't worry about it. But I thought that this was important to bring. I did feel sadness, but not for myself. Sadness for the person who wrote it, because they're living in a world that is so much smaller than the one I know, the one that we have together here. They're trapped in a narrowness that's probably exhausting. And in that moment, I realized this. Sorry. My history, my identity, it's too big for that kind of narrow-mindedness, that small-mindedness. And so is yours. So thank you so much for being with me. And if you'd like to support the work I'm doing, especially in the face of a lot of censorship issues I've been having here, I have a merch line that I just released. I'm so excited about it. Kind of pays homage to my Louisiana roots. And I got this made. I've been wearing this guy. I haven't been able to wear my sweatshirt yet because Nashville all of a sudden just got really hot. Like it got really hot all of a sudden. So I've been waiting to wear this guy. But I've got this. I got some other gear. It's all based on one of the trips I took back to Louisiana, where I got to go on Black Lake and be surrounded by these cypress trees that, I don't know. It was like the closest I've ever felt to my ancestors, was being on the lake surrounded by these trees. It like I kind of liked it and I kind of hated it. You know what I mean? So based on that, but you don't need to be from Louisiana to be a good ancestor. We all need to stay rooted. We all do. And that's what this represents. So I'll leave a link to that below, or you can go to nytnashville.com. Otherwise, thank you so much for being here, and we'll talk soon.